House Oversight Chair James Comer is requesting the National Archives provide the unredacted emails involving communications between then Vice President Biden's office and Hunter's business associates. Now, the White House's Ian Sams is slamming the investigations into the Biden family, saying if it's a day that ends in Y, James Comer is lying about President Biden. It's all part of his months-long effort to waste time and taxpayer resources in an evidence-free wild goose chase that does absolutely nothing to help improve the lives of Americans, which is what Congress should be prioritizing and is only focused on politically smearing the president. I want to bring in Pennsylvania Congressman Dan Muser. He's a member of the Financial Services and Small Business Committees. Congressman, good morning. Your response to Ian Sams and that criticism of these, well, in particular, James Comer's investigation, but all the investigations against the Biden family.
Yeah, good morning, Cheryl. I think it's shameless. I just think they're just doubling down on lies, and I don't think it. I know it. Here we had President Biden lying during his campaign, lying in office. He knew nothing about his son's business. Now they're just doubling down, stating that Jamie Comer's lying. Everything Chairman Comer is doing is based upon evidence. The evidence is extensive, to say the least, from bank accounts to phone calls to eyewitnesses to dinners with exchanges occurring of high levels of dollars right after the dinners. Look, if this was a bank robbery that took place, I mean, Joe Biden was in the middle of it. People need to agree to that because that's what happened. He was talking to those who potentially committed the crime, bringing him directly into it. And now throw in, we'll talk in a moment, I suppose, about the other latest findings with the archives. Look, this thing is ugly. The White House is just using the media, 90% of it, to exploit its fictional tale. And look, the evidence is going to be meaningful. And you know what? That's why the impeachment inquiry is going to be so important, because maybe finally ABC and CBS and all the others that are ignoring this and completely misinforming the general public we'll have to report it.
I want to get to the impeachment issue in just a second, but I want to back up to something else that you said. And you talked about James Comer. I will never call him Jamie, but you can. James Comer and the National Archives. He wants those 200 additional emails, those redacted emails, and that's what he's searching for now. What do you think is in those emails, and why do you think the National Archives is blocking the release of those emails to James Comer?
Well, as I understand it, President Obama and both Biden, as vice president at the time, have the right to authorize them or not authorize them, which is also ridiculous. That's why we need subpoena power. That's why we need the impeachment inquiry. But look at some of the emails that we've seen. On December 4th, 2015, the infamous meeting took place in Dubai. Prior to that meeting or during it, the official vice presidential office got emails with talking points on what to say about Burisma. And then there was an email back. The VP has signed off on it. Later that night, 10:45 or so that evening, an email from Hunter to the vice president's office. I'm receiving pressure from Burisma. 3 days later, the vice president flies to Ukraine, and that's when he threatens the $1 billion if the prosecutor doesn't get terminated. So, okay. I mean, this thing is, it's obvious, it's blatant, it happened. The only thing they were hoping they would get away with it long enough.
Because
it seems like it had to come out eventually.
Because it was so many years ago, likely as well. Let's move on to the impeachment issue. You've already brought this up, but I want to ask you about this because there's some House conservatives out there that are voicing concerns that House Speaker McCarthy is dangling a potential Biden impeachment inquiry to delay a reckoning over spending, that's CR. So North Carolina Congressman Dan Bishop told Fox News Digital it seems like McCarthy is using the prospect of an inquiry to, quote, attempt to leverage people to vote for a clean continuing resolution or other spending proposals that do not comply with the agreement made when we agreed to support him as Speaker. Congressman, can you shed light on this?
Yeah, I think that's way too simple. I mean, you know, Kevin McCarthy is working on two big issues, as we all are. I really don't see that they're related. They can speculate about that. The impeachment inquiry is proving to be necessary because of the mountains of evidence, and we believe a vote will come to the floor, I believe anyway, by the end of September, and it's necessary. It simply gives us more subpoena power and able to enforce the requests that we have. Now, as far as the CR goes, look, there's going to be political games taking place. And, I've been in Congress now 4.5 years, and, that's just the story. There's political games. We're gonna issue our plan, our spending cuts. The Senate's going to come back with its requests, followed by a CR. Eventually, I think we're going to have to agree to the CR because, Cheryl, we need to exhaust all options before we engage in a government shutdown that hurts us politically, that hurts the American people, hurts our country.
Those political games, though, I have to jump in here. Those political games are why the ratings agencies have put our credit rating as a nation on watch. They specifically have said, this was Fitch, they specifically said that because of the brinkmanship that happens every time that the budget comes up and we have to approve a new budget or a CR, or fund the government, that every time it's driven to the last second, that puts the financial health of the United States at risk.
It's true. But
that
we did avoid the default. We were the responsible ones, me meeting the Republicans. If you remember, the Biden White House didn't even want to negotiate, so that was sending credit ratings and starting to really rattle the economy and the financial world. So we're going to be responsible here. We're simply not ready to pass our 12 appropriations bills in the House. We've only passed one. The Senate's only passed a couple. So we can't do it by September 30th. And then we have a very responsible, very transparent working document so the American people see where we're going with the appropriations bills, and we get what is in the best interest of the United States of America, not politics, not any party, and then we vote from there.
Okay.
But we can't do it by September 30th, again, in my view.
Okay. All right. Real quick, Kelly McGee-White's on set. Just got a question for you. Go ahead, Kelly.
Congressman, why just an impeachment inquiry if there's so much evidence to prove Biden's guilt, as you're alleging? Why even hold a House floor vote on an impeachment inquiry? Why not introduce articles and have the vote to impeach him right here and right now?
Yeah. Well, because I think the American people have not bought into it yet, frankly. I think we need to expose the evidence. It needs to be understood. It needs to be clarified. And all. So the impeachment inquiry will allow us to do this. I mean, think about it. Every article I pick up from 90% of the media in the newspapers or on TV said there is zero evidence that Joe Biden was involved. That's their talking point, zero evidence. So there's a lot of Americans that are intelligent people reading that. The impeachment inquiry will give us the opportunity to provide that evidence to them so they understand why we're moving forward.
Congressman Dan Mueser. Congressman, thank you for being here. We'll see you next week when you're back in Washington.